Also at the White House today, President Donald Trump continues messaging the war with Iran is nearly over, and a new twist involving the critical oil shipping route at the center of the conflict. Mr. Trump says he's permanently opening the Strait of Hormuz to stop China from giving Iran weaponry. The president posted on social media saying, "I am doing it for them also and for the world. The situation will never happen again. They've agreed not to send weapons to Iran." When he says they, he's speaking about China. Live to Washington and CBS News political reporter Zach Hudak. Zach, good to see you here. So how prominently has China figured into this war in Iran?
Reed, fairly prominently at this point. And the reality is, with Iran, fairly crippled as it is militarily and organizationally right now, having an ally like China who could both give you weapons, as the president said he had heard might have been the case, or they can give you satellite imaging and other things like that that can be particularly helpful in a mismatched conflict like Iran versus the United States and Israel. Let's not forget that the president has a meeting coming up with the Chinese president next month, so there's a lot at stake here. Listen in to what he told Fox News yesterday about China's role in all of this.
You've got a major meeting coming up next month with President Xi. I want to get your take on China and how this shift in oil, particularly because of Iran, particularly because of Venezuela and what you've done, even your comments on Cuba. How does that change the dynamic of this meeting with President Xi?
I don't think it does. I mean, he's somebody that needs oil. We don't. He's somebody I get along with very well. He just wrote me a beautiful letter.
He wrote you a letter?
Yeah, he did. He responded to a letter that I wrote because I had heard that China is giving weapons to, I mean, you're seeing it all over the place, to Iran, that China's
Did he
giving
say he's
weapons.
giving them?
Yeah, and I wrote him a letter asking him not to do that, and he wrote me a letter saying that essentially he's not doing that.
And Reed, I want to underscore, while the United States only gets in single digits of a percentage of our oil through the Strait of Hormuz, China actually typically has about 40% of its oil coming through there. So this is a major impact on them, the strait being closed, and that could incentivize them to help Iran. So that's what the president's talking about there. And one other point I want to make is that China does get a bit of oil from Venezuela, but that's gone down significantly since the U.S. has taken more control there and added additional sanctions on that. So this really is a situation where the president wants to make sure that China doesn't feel like they are in a position that they need to try to help Iran as we try to bring this conflict to a close.
You know, I look at some of the video we flash up on the screen, some of our service personnel in some of those ships. We also know we have many American service personnel flying over the skies of Iran and elsewhere in that region. The president says the war is close to being over, but how does that square with the fact that we're learning more U.S. troops are now amassing in that region?
It does seem a bit paradoxical, Reed. I think that the administration will respond by saying that, they effectively have to bring in, like you would in a baseball game, a closer. I'm sure that there are echoes here of the 2011 withdrawal from Iraq, which left a bit of a power vacuum and obviously didn't go quite as we hoped it would. I think that's a concern that's leading to more troops being brought in. Obviously, this continued situation in the Strait, which the president says we are now fully reopening, that will require more resources. And then finally, we're at a moment where all of these militias backed by Iran are more empowered than they've been in years to attack U.S. bases and U.S. diplomats. So there's an additional need for security in the region. This is something the president also addressed in that Fox News interview. I want to play a clip from that.
You keep saying is this war over?
I think it's close to over, yeah. I mean, I view it as very close to over. You know what? If I pulled up stakes right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild that country. And we're not finished. But we'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal very badly.
And Reed, I think what that really underscores is the president is aware that war is not popular. And he ran, very much so, on not getting involved in things in the Middle East. So he's trying to tell voters who are looking ahead to midterms that we're almost out. And I think he'll be saying that until we are fully out of the conflict.
Okay, so let's talk about these new and reported talks still ahead to end the war in Iran. I'm mindful of Vice President J.D. Vance, the president's own son-in-law, Jared Kushner, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. They were at the table for the last round of talks that failed, marathon talks, almost 24 hours of talks. Is there any sense that the same players will be at the table this time, or are they going to switch things up?
Reed, there is no question that that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner have very much lost the trust of the Iranians. I think that's in part a result of the disagreement over whether or not the ceasefire included Lebanon and Israel. And I think also just a result of the fact that they've been the lead negotiators for much of this, and the U.S. has now given several ultimatums and deadlines and then extended those. So I think in some ways they've lost credibility. I do think that J.D. Vance remains, in the eyes of the Iranians, the most credible member of the administration, and that's something that goes back to when he was a senator, and he is just historically the most anti-interventionalist of these major players in the administration here. But I think only time will tell, and it does seem like clearly the vice president was unable to have conclusive success despite the marathon meetings last weekend in Pakistan.
All right, we know you're watching what comes ahead. Zach Hudak in Washington, thank you so much. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Elizabeth Palmer is in Tel Aviv rounding out our coverage on these matters, has more on the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. Watch.
It's hard to get a clear picture of which ships are moving in and out of the Straits of Hormuz because they're turning off their transponders, the little beacons that normally they would use to broadcast their identity to satellites and other ships. However, it does seem clear that the U.S. blockade is not only turning back ships which have loaded up at Iranian ports, thereby stopping money from Iranian oil going into the Iranian economy, but also just generally putting a chill on shipping. There were roughly 130 ships going through the Straits of Hormuz before the war. That's down to a handful, one or two a day, although, as I say, it's hard to see clearly. And that means that the price of oil is still 30% higher than it was at the beginning of January, although there was a little dip today. It's down to about 94, low 90s dollars a barrel because traders see a possibility of a new round of talks between Iran and President Trump coming to some sort of agreement to open the straits for 20% of the world's energy. Back to you.
Elizabeth Palmer, thank you. And we have this update on the war from U.S. Central Command on the Strait of Hormuz blockade. A post on X reveals during the first 48 hours of the U.S. blockade on ships entering and exiting Iranian ports, no vessels have made it past U.S. forces. Additionally, it goes on to say 9 vessels have complied with direction from U.S. forces to turn around and return toward an Iranian port or coastal area. We also have a programming note, from gas prices here at home to what you pay to fly on a vacation to mortgage rates. We got a deep dive into how the war in Iran affects your wallet directly. The Daily Report, Setting It Straight, streams tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern right here on CBS News 24/7.